guys, Alex Platt here, and today we're going to talk about how to use your double stroke rolls around the drum set in a way that doesn't sound like a typewriter being pushed down a flight of stairs. Okay, so here's the scenario. You've spent months, maybe even years, perfecting your double stroke roll. It looks good, it feels good, and most importantly, it sounds good. You can play it totally relaxed with zero tension, and yet, when you try to play it on the drum set, it sounds like this. When what you probably wanted it to sound like sounds a little something like this. Pro tip. When you're doing the bad example, use your camera's really mediocre mics. But when you're doing the good example, use all of your badass mics with badass preamps and badass plugins. So how do you make that leap between the more rigid style of rudimental roll combinations to that fluid rolling around the drum set complete with accented phrasing sound? The answer? Bring in the rollettes. No, the rollettes are not some bizarre addition to the Jenny Craig diet. Nor are they that super curvy troupe of kickline dancers you saw at the State Fair last week. You go, girls. No stopping you. Don't let anyone tell you what to do. No, the rollettes are my way of describing how to take your typical rudimental roll combination and turn it into a let. In other words, a triplet, quadruplet, quintuplet, sextuplet, septuplet, etc. It sounds a lot smoother around a drum set, and it eliminates that jerky typewriter being pushed down a flight of stairs sound that we described earlier. The first step to getting this sound? Smooth out your drag. So smooth. So what do I mean when I say smooth out your drag? Quite simply, we are taught to play drags in a rudimental style, which means that the grace notes of the drag are very tightly clustered next to the accenting single stroke, like this. But when you put that around a drum set, we get kind of the galloping horse effect. Into sounding like Monty Python's King Arthur with the coconuts.
You're using coconut.
Okay, but I think it sounds much better when it's smoothed out into a triplet. Right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, left, left. And you'll notice that I am using a kind of molar pumping motion with my single stroke hand. You don't have to do that. You can practice them flat just like this. Or with some arm motion. I recommend that you practice both simply because you're going to be using accents in the context of musical phrases. So use your arm a little bit and also practice flat. And don't forget to practice with the left hand. And you'll see right away that that sounds a heck of a lot better when I put it around the drum set. And of course, with jazz, it's figured that gets used pretty frequently. With funk and rock too. You can find it being used on the hi-hat and the snare drum. Like that. So, smoothing out your drag into a triplet combination is the first step to making your rolls sound smooth. around your kit. Next up is the single drag tap, which I call 4-stroke combination, but you could also call an inverted paradiddle. A single stroke tap, played rudimentally, looks like this. So a non-accented drag followed by a heavily accented single stroke. You see, as I go faster, it sounds like the beat turns around. It sounds like I'm beginning with the heavy single stroke accent, which is why I like to invert this one. Played slowly, it sounds a little bit like Carol of the Bells. And as we go faster, you'll see that this naturally starts to smooth out into a lead, in this case a quadruplet. And the nice thing about this is that you can have 2 accents. As far as a real-world example is concerned, personally, I like to put my right hand on the floor tom, my left hand on the snare drum, and make a fill out of it. It just sounds cool. Have fun with that. The next combination I'm going to demonstrate is the 5-stroke roll. This is where things get a little bit tricky. A 5-stroke roll is frequently phrased in the rudiments like this. Not unlike the way that I demonstrated the single drag tap or the 4-stroke. Except we're just adding another double stroke. But phrased this way, we still have that little gap between the single stroke and the double strokes that leads to sort of an awkward sounding execution around the drum set. Not so great. We want to smooth it out, and to do that, we're going to have to turn it into a quintuplet. And again, that's where things can get a little bit tricky, because you have to subdivide the beat into 5 parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And I do feel it's necessary to use a little bit of molar method with this. If you're not a fan of molar technique, feel free to do it flat. But I like to use a little molar method because it makes it easier to move my arms around the drum set. So here it is again. Notice that I'm using a really comfortable dropped double, and I'm not wristing out every stroke, so to speak. And you can relate this very much to a simple single stroke molar triplet. Whip, up, tap, whip, up, tap, whip, up, tap, whip, up, tap, whip, up. I'm going to speed up now. So you can see now I'm getting that smooth flow that works very well around the drums. And there you have it. That's the 5-stroke combination. Take your time with this one. Make sure you really are getting a quintuplet before speeding it up. Good luck. So now we come to the 6-stroke roll, and the 6-stroke roll, much coveted by drummers everywhere. For you more advanced players, this is going to be a little too easy for you. But for people who are just exploring how to use 6-stroke rolls on the drum set, I hope you find this useful. The 6-stroke roll rudimentally is taught with a very different pulse than what you would normally use around the drum set. The pulse for a 6-stroke roll rudimentally is here. A 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and if you're like me, you use a little molar method on your double strokes. You use a little upstroke to really whip out those accents. Up, 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 double, 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 double. That's great for rudimental stuff. But again, just like with the 5-stroke, you're going to find that it doesn't sound so good around the toms. Not so great. So of course, we're going to turn it into a sextuplet. This actually is a lot easier than the 5-stroke. Turning this into 6 strokes, even strokes, is just a sextuplet. It's just a 16th note triplet. 1 and a 1 and a 1. And we still have that sort of whip up, up, whip up, whip, whip. Single stroke molar root to what we're doing. So there's that. We put it around the drum set, and we have that nice, smooth, let feel to what we're doing. There you have it. That's the 6-stroke roll, a 6-stroke roulette in this case. Last but not least is the 7-stroke combination, the 7-stroke roll. Again, we're going to encounter the same trickiness that we saw with the 5-stroke roll. The 5-stroke roll, we need to turn that into a quintuplet to make it sound smooth around the instrument. That's the same with the 7-stroke roll. We're going to need to turn that into a septuplet. Normally, 7-stroke rolls are phrased very much in sort of a 16th note / 32nd note pattern. But again, this doesn't work as well for drum set application. We again encounter the problem of eliminating the separation, that little rest between the single stroke and its double strokes. So we have to practice this again as a septuplet. Notice that I am using a molar motion for this as well. Whip and up and whip and up. So when we do the septuplet, you want to keep that root arm motion happening while eliminating that little gap between the single stroke and the double stroke. Right away. This sounds pretty good when you put it over the instrument with different voices involved. There you have it. That's the 7-stroke combination, but again, go slowly, really work on turning it into a septuplet. Again, subdividing each beat into 7 parts. And there you have it. That's the 7-stroke combination. So in conclusion, the roulettes are a very useful way of creating a seamless rolling accent sound around the drum set. But be careful when you practice these that you are treating them as lets, as triplets, quadruplets, quintuplets, sextuplets, septuplets, etc. Really try to eliminate that gap between the single stroke and the double stroke. Most of you will want to practice these slowly on a practice pad the way that I've demonstrated. Some of you who have been practicing rudiments for years may be able to do what I call mashing that single stroke right up against the double strokes. And if you can do that cleanly, more power to you. Just make sure it translates to the drum set as you start to move your accents around the kit. Also, as you noticed, I used my snare drum as sort of the base of operations as I was moving accents around the drum set. But make sure that you also try doing your base of operations, in other words, your double stroke rolls, on, say, a tom or a hi-hat, and try moving your accents around from there. You'll notice that the execution of your double stroke does change. And it will be an even bigger challenge to have that let sound translate as you throw accents around the instrument. Good luck, and to the wonderful dance troupe, the picture of which I found randomly on the internet, thank you. Don't ever, ever stop being you.